Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. As a Michigan fan myself, there are a lot of storylines that are starting to unravel for this Michigan program over the next couple of days, weeks, and really months as we get into the 2026 class. Want to get just a little bit of conversation regarding what to keep an eye on for this Michigan program really over the next couple of days and weeks. I want to start with taking a look at some early 2026 targets that will be on campus for Michigan this weekend. Want to get into a little bit of a conversation in terms of what the quarterback board looks like for Michigan in the 2026 class. Then I want to give just my 2 cents on what's happening with some of those transfer portal targets from Notre Dame and how it relates to Michigan. Fired up to get into it. Before we do, and as always, to the Michigan fans, number one, to the Michigan fans who like to follow the recruiting side of the sport, that's kind of what I love as well. I'm going to put together a list, an all-encompassing list, you might say, of 2026 targets that I think should be top priorities for Michigan. We're going to get into that list over the next couple of weeks. I just got to get some more eyeballs on some of these 2026 kids. To the Michigan fans who have been rocking with the boys, as we've talked the recruiting trail, the transfer portal, cannot thank you guys enough. You know, y'all who are checking out recruiting episodes in the end of January is some real riders. Appreciate you guys. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Without further ado, let's get into visitors this weekend. Now, I think for a lot of Michigan fans, one of the positions that we are focusing on the most in this 2026 class, the wide receiver spot. You know, it's pretty clear we got a guy coming in at the quarterback position. How do we maximize Bryce Underwood for the next couple of years? You want to make sure he has the weapons to really be successful for this Michigan program. Travis Johnson, four-star wide receiver from the state of Virginia, really interesting cat who's going to be on campus for Michigan this weekend. 6'3", 165 pounds, looks a little bit bigger on the junior film, so I wouldn't be surprised if that's close to 175, 180 pounds. This is a guy that can win in a lot of different ways. I love that in wide receivers coming out of high school. It's partially why I loved Andrew Marsh so much as well. I think sometimes on the recruiting trail, we get really wrapped up in height, weight, speed. You know, how tall are you? How fast do you run 100-meter dashing? And we kind of forget to look at, hey, who are the wide receivers that can win in a lot of different ways, can create separation in the route trees. Travis Johnson, although the 6'3" frame we like a lot, might not have that elite track and field metric that kind of bumps up a lot of wide receivers into that five-star range. You turn on the film and say, one, really good after the catch. Now, he has long speed, but what I love most about his movement skills, the short area quicks. And he makes people miss routinely in terms of yards after the catch situations. You'll see that translate into his route running a little bit and his ability to create separation. And, you know, at 6'3", he's really good in some of those contested catch situations as well. I use a box checking wide receiver term in a very complimentary way for a guy like Travis Johnson, because we see a lot of wide receivers coming out of high school. They might have some of those elite track and field times, or might have a basketball background with a 6'4" frame that allows them to go up and make contested catches. It's rare to find wide receivers that can win in a multitude of different ways and are kind of polished up wide receivers. I look at Travis Johnson and say that's kind of what you're getting with this kid in the 2026 class. Now, arguably the most intriguing name that will be on campus is Jermaine Kinsler from Bergen Catholic in New Jersey. He 6'7", 260, plays defensive line, plays a little tight end, basketball background. Now, look, I'm gonna preface this comment that I'm gonna make with that I'm sitting in my basement talking recruiting to a laptop. I'll look at this kid and say I would love to see him try offensive tackle. Yeah, he's a. I mean, look, 6'7" with the length he has, that's the ideal frame. Obviously, a little bit light to play tackle right now. The footwork's amazing. You see that as a defensive lineman. You see that as a tight end. I'm not sure if he has enough athletic juice to be an elite tight end. On the defensive line, he kind of struggles with the pad level a little bit. When you're 6'7", it's hard to meet offensive linemen with good leverage and pads. But I look at the athlete and say, man, like, sign me up for a kid that's 6'7", 260 with the athleticism he has. Can we put some weight on him and just put him at tackle? That's probably the position that he has the highest ceiling with. And I'll kind of trust Sherrone Moore to figure that out. But I look at the kid's high school film and say, I'll bet on that kid every single day of the week in terms of the tackle, because it's hard to find these guys with 6'7" frames that move the way Jermaine Kinsler does. I think he could be a solid tight end, especially inline blocker. I think he could be a solid defensive lineman. I think he could be an elite offensive tackle. We'll see how that plays out over the next couple of years. Probably has a little bit to deal with what does the body look like going into a senior year. Last one, his teammate from Bergen Catholic in New Jersey, Jordan Thomas, the technician at the cornerback spot. Again, kind of similar to how we talked about Travis Johnson at 6'1", buck 90. You really like the frame, no verified track times. You can tell this kid takes a ton of pride in terms of how he plays cornerback. A lot of the top cornerbacks you see coming out of high school are just freaky athletes, probably not the most polished up guys. Jordan Thomas, he's polished, like knows how to play press man, really disciplined with his eyes on the quarterback and zone coverage, played the football in the air really well, has a background as a wide receiver, and you see the ball skills show up as a defensive back. This is one of those guys you want to stockpile in your recruiting class. Maybe not going to be a top 10 NFL draft pick. Hard for me seeing him not working out in the college football landscape. So those are the three visitors we have on campus. Another emerging storyline is Chip Lindsey recruiting quarterbacks, most notably Ryder Lyons. Look, we knew Chip Lindsey, you're going to make your rounds, go visit some of the top prospects across the country. And I saw him visit Ryder Lyons, and I was like, okay, check it out on a 5-star quarterback out there in Cali. Didn't really expect there to be a ton of traction or buzz. Apparently, there is a little bit. This would be a perfect addition for, ideal. Obviously, he's a 5-star quarterback, but more importantly, he's a guy that's going to go on a 1-year mission. So essentially a 2027 guy. You look at Bryce Underwood, probably going to be 3 years, go to the NFL. Ryder Lyons takes over as a redshirt freshman or sophomore. To me, that would make a lot of sense. And one of the things that stands out to me is, one, Michigan is ultra aggressive with these visits. I don't know if there's a staff that's going out and seeing more names and more players across the country than this Michigan staff. Like, as a Michigan fan who's followed Michigan on the recruiting trail for a long time now, I can't remember a time where we were more aggressive in terms of casting a wide net across the country. And a guy like Chip Lindsey, he is going, I guess this was kind of the second point I wanted to talk about. We're big game hunting at the quarterback position. You look at Ryder Lyons, you look at the numbers, 6,500 yards, 68% completion percentage, 84 touchdowns to only 14 interceptions. You're not going to find a more impressive stat line in terms of touchdown interception ratio and completion percentage. But what I love most about Ryder Lyons is that ability to create. He is extremely twitchy and athletic in the pocket. When stuff gets broken down, he can go outside of the pocket and extend plays, throw from a variety of different platforms. Basically, the opposite of what you got from Cade McNamara or a guy like Davis Warren. When things weren't perfect for Cade or Davis Warren, they were kind of toast. They just weren't the athletes to extend plays and find explosives. You look at J.J. McCarthy, really good at that. I'll look at Ryder Lyons and say, kind of similar vibes. Really good athlete, really good as plays break down, and that's becoming a really important aspect of playing quarterback these days. And Ryder Lyons, a guy that can make all the throws from the pocket, don't get me wrong, but as an athlete, getting outside and throwing off platform, being creative, as Jim Harbaugh used to like to say, making wine out of water, Ryder Lyons does that. And we'll see how much traction there's able to pick up. His older brother plays for USC. USC is obviously recruiting him really hard. But it's kind of cool to see Chip Lindsey say, hey, we're going to go after some of these top quarterbacks. One other quarterback to keep an eye on is Brady Smeagol, committed to Florida State, decommitted from Florida State. Not as much of the twitchy athlete as Ryder Lyons, more of that big howitzer arm from the pocket, almost kind of like Ryan Mallett coming out of high school. Ludicrous numbers on Friday nights. He's thrown for over 11,000 yards, 147 touchdowns in his first 3 years of high school football, 28 interceptions. You love the production from this kid coming out of high school. I like Ryder Lyons better just because of the athlete and what he can do outside the pocket and the amount of different ways he can test the defense. I'd be very happy with Brady Smeagol as well. And again, Ryder Lyons, in terms of that quarterback runway with that mission trip, makes a little bit of sense too. as it pertains to the transfer portal conversation, right? Michigan, it sounds like remains in it for a guy like Rocco Spindler. I'm going to give my take on it. This is kind of what I've thought over the last 24 hours. This sounds like it's going to come down to NIL. And I go back and watch Rocco in 2024 and just say, is he a guy that I look at and say, we're going to not be outbid for him? The way I personally look at it's no. Like, he's not going to be in for spring practice. He's got 1 year of eligibility remaining. Look, if Michigan ends up landing him and you get an experienced interior offensive lineman that we know can be very solid, yeah, I'm all for it. But is this one of those recruitments that I'm saying we need to outbid everybody else for? And it does sound like it's kind of coming down to NIL. Not sure if that's the kind of player I think Rocco Spindler is. Now, on the other hand, Pat Coogan sounds a little bit less NIL related, and I just, one, I like him more as a football player, and then two, I like the versatility. You look at how you want to build this offensive line. Pat Coogan's a guy that can come in and push Greg Crippen for that starting center spot, but also could fill in that guard spot that's kind of up for grabs for Michigan going into 2025. A guy that we know can play at a high level and has played at a high level, both at the center and guard position. And for everything you hear coming out of the Notre Dame program, like rock solid leader as well. Kind of feels like Josh Prebe a little bit. I like the versatility more. I like the football player more. And it sounds like it's not as NIL driven, which I like more too. Because I don't know if either Rocco or Pat are guys that you want to back the Brinks up for. I'd rather take those resources and build a really good 2026 class or go after a wide receiver in the spring transfer portal window. That's kind of my take on the transfers. Again, would love them both. Would love one of them. Like, you can never have enough solid players on the offensive line. We now turn our attention to the 2026 class. Obviously, have to lock in Ty Haywood, who's going to be committing on February 3rd. Obviously, hoping it's Michigan. We'll have a film breakdown for Ty Haywood if and when he does commit. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. That's all we got today. Again, we will start turning our attention to the 2026 class. Appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.